and that they wanted me to kind of review it, so I thought let me give it a shot, see what happens, and we'll go from there. So in regards to obviously this particular episode, we had Imani and Colby, and I think what was really interesting about their relationship is the way that Colby had such a huge sway of influence on Imani's mind. Now Imani may say that she's not influenced by him and she has her own mind, but the fact of the matter is you got braces on his terms. And when I say his terms, in the fact that when he said, obviously, on a second date,
not willing. I kind of love my teeth.
No, I don't think I would have got to know her further after that point.
Interesting. Does that not worry you?
It was our second date, so no.
Now, I know that you were considering it. But I know you said yourself, in 5 years' time, you were considering actually getting braces. But the problem is here is that you didn't get it. And you only got it when he decided to say it. Here's my other side of the argument. The sister, okay, is just as controlling as Colby. Here's why I'm going to say that. Because the way she said, obviously, I've been trying to tell you and you never listened to me about the way you dress, everything like that. And now suddenly Colby's telling you to do it and you're just doing it. Right?
Been contemplating for over 5 years. You could say that you don't find it offensive, but I found it offensive. I found it offensive. I found it offensive. And I didn't like it.
Right? You're both vying for somebody who just wants to please people. I think it almost looks like Imani's one of those pleasers, empaths, one of those very sweet people who are willing to do whatever anybody says just to keep the peace. And so when obviously the sister is saying, she said this and that, and Imani never listened, and all of a sudden now Colby comes along and he says the braces situation, he says that you'd be much more pretty.
Her about how she's dressed for like years. And I'm not being salty because it didn't matter and she didn't jump when I said jump. But as soon as you came in, it was just like, and it's something I need to talk with Imani about.
We'll address that in a second. And the faith situation, the fact that Imani says that she would have never considered being an atheist had Colby not come in. Let me just say this right here and there. Colby doesn't change your mind, Imani. You were always going in that direction. Why do I say that? A true Christian, can't be swayed. When I say swayed, will never give up Christ. They may go off, they may backslide, they may move away, but they never give up Christ. So the fact of the matter is that she's gone to atheism and doesn't believe in God anymore could be an indication that she never really was saved in the first place. She could have been religious. And her knowledge, obviously, of the Bible is guided by what herself and Imani studied. Herself and Colby studied in their private time.
And I mean, that's where Colby found, there's slavery that's condoned in the Bible, but it's inspired by God.
Yeah.
Why are slaves praying to God to release them when God wrote that in Exodus?
That, it doesn't make sense that a moral God, would condone slavery. Well, let me break this down for you right here and right now. The Bible does speak of slavery, but not in the way that you understand. The slavery we're talking about, the chattel slavery, the Atlantic slavery we saw from Africa to UK, is explicitly denied by God. When it talks about how, and let me find the scripture for you as well. I'll find the scripture for you. In Exodus 21 verse 16, the scripture actually says, "Whoever steals a man and sells him, and anyone found in possession of him shall be put to death." Let's lay that to rest. You see, and this is found on the internet very simply. Got to questions there. So when she says, obviously, God, how can God condone slavery? And that's the reason why I don't agree with a God that's not moral, etc., etc. But actually, after careful consideration and actual truthfully seeking out the truth, and not just seeking out an answer to make it. To make you go in one direction, you actually begin to get true answers, right? And so what you see when Imani begins to speak to Clarence and Denisha and explaining her point as to why she became an atheist, she actually cites that she first cites Colby, and then she cites the fact that they studied together. Okay, so she was never going in that direction until Colby got involved. Okay, now I believe I believe that her necessity to please Colby comes from the fact that her neglect in the family, her invisibility in the family, and we know this because her conversation with her sister on the beach is that, you know, sister, you're quite overbearing. You talk when we're talking, you take over the conversation. Your personality is quite bright and overbearing sometimes. And she basically just says, I just need some room to shine a little bit. Like, give me some room to shine a little bit, right? And so the sister doesn't take it too well at first, and she's like, she doesn't understand that. But she takes it in her stride, right? And that showed me straight away that Imani is in need of attention. And Colby is providing this type of attention that she wants. But with that, the same thing that her family do, which is influence her to believe in something that she doesn't believe in at the moment. Listen, Christianity is not about what I grew up in. Christianity is about where am I born again. Christianity is about renewing my mind. Christianity is about accepting the truth and saying, I truly, wholeheartedly believe it. The Bible says, confess with your mouth, believe in your heart. This isn't a confess with your mouth and don't believe your heart. It's a believe your heart, meaning that I believe it to be true and I act it out. So the moment you began to read the Bible and saw there was slavery in it, like I said, the Bible condones the slavery that you're talking about. The kind of slavery that is accepted in the Bible is when a man volunteers to be what? A servant. But the word is used as slave. Servant in the house of a Hebrew person. In fact, the Jews couldn't even enslave each other. That was scripture. But what was happening is that people would voluntarily submit themselves as a servant, almost like a housemaid. Okay, so you paying your housemaid, okay, is same as slavery. If you want to go there, that's not slavery, is it? We'd say that you pay the person dues. Same thing with a servant. A servant would spend time underneath in someone's household, etc. And for 6 years they would serve. In the 7th year, the Bible tells us very, very clearly in Deuteronomy 15, verse 12 to 15, that in the 7th year, let them go. Okay, and if the servant wants to stay, they got to pierce their ear, and that they would stay for life, right? So it was a form of a job. It was a lifetime type of job. If you wanted lifetime security and benefits, this was a job to go into. Okay, but we see with Imani here, okay, that because she just wants this love and attention, she's willing to take the downgrade. I'm sorry, someone on the second date, I need braces. I ain't gonna lie to you. Listen, I need braces. I ain't gonna even play with you. And actually, me and the missus discussed this the other week, right? But the funny thing was, just like Imani, I've been thinking about getting braces for a little while. It's been on my mind. Now, when my missus brought it up, it wasn't like, you look so much better if you had braces. She just said, babe, like, we're just talking about dentist or whatever. Have we been to a dentist? And I was like, oh, I've got a couple cavities in it. And she's like, oh, would you ever consider getting braces? I said, yeah, I've been thinking about it. She said, all right, cool, we'll book an appointment. I said, yeah, let's go. Right? Because she didn't say, oh, you look so much better. Now, I know. Let's keep it 100 real. Let's keep it trill. Let's keep it 100 trill. Would you look better if the teeth were straightened out? Absolutely yes. Your aesthetics would go up. Would you get more points? Would you look better? Yes, you would. Let's not play. I think anybody says that's not true, they're lying. Yeah? And I'm not talking about a gap that is a nice gap. I'm talking about, for instance, like mine, look. I've got a teeth that's come up to here. Yeah, and this is quite wide, right? But if I had it, even if I just had the gap, it would have been fine. But the gap and that, and this looks awkward, like, do you know what I mean? It's not great. But if I just got it together, good to go, let's go. Do you know what I mean? So I would look aesthetically better. Let's just be real. But when someone says that on a second date, what gives that person the confidence, yeah, to say that? Here's the confidence. The confidence is this: he was never going to go on a third date unless you did it. Now that for me is manipulative, and for that shows me where the weight and the gravity of what's keeping you in this relationship is at. It's on the very heavy aesthetics. Listen, if you didn't find her attractive, and so what happens is this: this can lead to a form of manipulation, because what can happen is this: and Tracy said this, every single time you don't like something that's physical about the person, you want to change it. Well, babe, your bum's not big enough. Let's get a bum job. Your breasts are not perky enough. Let's get a boob job. You know, like your nose is not correct. Let's get a nose job. And there's suggestions of how you can look better. And these begin to form insecurities in the partner that you're with. And so now the person's considering even every single thing about their aesthetics, and it becomes to drive them mad and crazy. You understand? Secondly, obviously the fact that obviously she did the braces directly after he said it means that potentially there will be more things he'll begin to say in the future which she will cartel to, meaning that she will be under subjection to this guy in all things. And that for me is dangerous, because that means that at any single time, sis, you talk about slavery in the Bible, you're going to become a slave in this relationship. You talk about slavery in the Bible, you're going to be a slave in your own relationship and lose 10 years, 15 years, 5 years of your time, right? Because you say you love this person. But because you don't understand what this person's doing, you may miss what kind of behavior they're actually exuding. I think it's quite scary the way that he's so nonchalant and lacking empathy when he talks to the parents. Also, I say parent, the mother and the daughter. And I think this is a telltale sign of this type of lack of empathy is... again, we notice that his parents are not obviously in the conversation either. But what's interesting is that I always find that the way that we speak to a mother figure can often be an indication of how we respect male headship. And so, if there was a male on their side who was a father, could he have spoken like that? I don't think he could have. I'm going to be real with you. I don't think he could have. I don't think he could have said what he said. The way he said it so cold, like, what was rude about that? He could have never said that. Because the way that men are respected, and the way they hold authority, and the way they command respect, there's no way, head to head, man to man, that's going to happen. But because obviously there wasn't that male aspect of things, he said what he said on the table, saying, yeah, this is it. Like, I mean, I'm very frank about it. Listen, being frank is no excuse for rudeness. I always say this to you. Being frank isn't an excuse for rudeness. Being frank means I tell the truth, yeah? Not fearing the consequences. Not being rude about it. Let's never mix those two together. You know, being frank and being honest and true. Nah, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. And then obviously we got to see some of the conversation that they had one-to-one with Tracy. I think that was also quite interesting. I think it was interesting because, like I said, the comment where we saw that obviously that the fact that he was not even that, but you know what, the situation with the sister where Imani's like making up with her sister now and she wants him to make up with the sister. He intentionally sabotaged the situation. And what I find frustrating is that, you know, I hate people who are gonna say, oh, I'm an atheist, but then try to use the Bible to condition your behavior. That was a form of manipulation. That was a very strong weaponizing form of manipulation. To have a conversation with a sister, and the sister said, I'm still not happy with you, and then you decide to say, but isn't the Bible saying about grace? That grace every day. First of all, the Bible doesn't say grace every day like that. And put it in its context, sir, please. And secondly, to use it as a weapon to get her to stop feeling the way she's feeling is an indication of the type of behavior that he has. He knows how to wrestle power out of people's hands. He knows what weapons to use to attack someone. This is a dangerous person. And I'm not saying that he's a bad person. I'm saying for the type of girl that he's dating, she will be finished. Because the way that he and the way that he behaves, he's willing to do whatever he needs to do to win. Okay? So when he had a conversation with his sister, like, bro, that was not a reach out to try and find out what she's saying. Now, I get it. The sister was rude, and the sister, was not liking him at all. You know, she's just showing that energy. But, bro, there was a lack of trying to make this girl see your viewpoint. A lack of it. You didn't even try. You know, you pretended as if, oh, I understand your feelings and why you may feel that way because you love your sister, blah, 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 blah. But that's all well and good. That understanding must come with action.
Change, and it'll continue that way.
I can't relate when it comes to you say I have the same energy as last night, because even the Bible says that each morning you get a new grace.
Sir, the following words that came out of your mouth did not show that you understood her sister's point of view. It showed that you said those things to make her feel at ease, so then you can make your point. So for me, I was watching that behavior and I said, this is not going to end well, I don't feel. I don't feel like this is going to end well. And I think the reason why he is the way he is because he's been pampered by the bodyguard, Denisha, the older sister. She's kind of pampered him in a way that I say, and when I say pamper, I want to be as respectful as possible. When I say pamper, I mean in the sense of, like, backing him up when things don't have to be backed up. Like, on the dinner table, when my man's moving cruddy and talking about how, you know, she got the bracelet situation plus 2 points, etc., etc., after the truth tower, Even your brother Alex was like, whoa.
Honest with y'all, I think y'all are having an argument for nothing because it's gonna go back and forth. They ain't gonna turn tonight.
Right.
The most we can do is just pray.
Yo, that's a mad thing. So Denisha should have said, listen, bro, let me be very frank with you. You don't ever speak to a woman like that. Bro, let me handle you correctly. Bro, you don't speak to a woman like that. And I think that is testament to why he behaves the way he does. He ain't checked and he ain't pulled up on. And so therefore he speaks anyway. And you can see that. What I loved, it was Clarence. Clarence is such a, I like the way he behaves, such a sound guy. He looks like a very just genuine type of guy, and I love his energy that he brought to the table. We understand that this relationship is not one of, that's a godly foundation, okay? We understand that they don't believe in God. What I found interesting was that obviously the prayer situation where they didn't bow their heads. Now, some people might have found that rude. I actually had to sit there, I watched it, and I said, is it rude? Why am I asking you to bow your head to honor me? Yeah. Why am I asking you to bow your head to honor me in something that you don't believe in? I don't have to ask you to do that. You don't have to. If you don't bow your head, don't bow your head. Like, it's customary and courtesy for you to do it to help get along. But actually, I'm saying again, you didn't have to do that. Do you know what I mean? So I was pressed at first, like, oh, they're disrespectful, blah, blah, blah. But I want to watch this as well. Even in that, Imani's taking the lead of Colby. Because when they go back to the original story of the blessing the food situation, that's how the whole conversation started. When she was starting to bless the food, he said quite blandly, so you're telling me you want to bless the food when there's many people starving in Africa. What's that got to do with people in Africa? We bless the food because, fam, we're grateful for what God has provided. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, so this whole conversation around God has started from Colby's end and his distaste. Let me tell you something about Colby. Let me finish this off this last point about that point. That conversation about it. Whenever you watch Colby and Imani one-to-one with Tracy, Imani is taking cues of Colby. Every time she watches his face to see what he's going to say, I know this look. I do the exact same thing to my dad in church. I was doing it for a very long time. When I was new in the faith, a baby, I would watch my dad and see his reactions to some of the sermons. I'll be like, he might not be liking that. Okay, I don't like that then. Why? Because I was trying to use him as a trusted guidance and source of what was good and what wasn't good. Do you understand? And so what was interesting is that Imani watches Colby and then she copies or accepts a certain behavior, right? And it's interesting because Colby shows various spats of selfishness. For instance, like I said, she's doing a physical change, but can you do an emotional change yourself? It's hard, you know, but when you were asking her to physically change, you had no problem. So you're already seeing, I think, a lack of ability to be able to compromise. And will he compromise? More than likely not. And it's a very dangerous game to play in a relationship with somebody who doesn't want to compromise to help, you know, further along your agendas as well as theirs. So yeah, there's a lot of things that were going on. I think I understand why the parents, why the mum and the sister didn't give their blessing. I wouldn't have given their blessing if I was honest. I just think the way that Colby is so nonchalant about the way that he behaves and the way that the family are also backing him in his crazy behavior, I call it, then the likelihood is that my daughter will enter a situation where you guys will end up backing Colby. It's a little bit scary, and I just think the conversation on the table and the fact that he was being babied by his sister Denisha a little bit, just dangerous precedents to set. I think also as well, drawing towards the end as well with Colby, I just felt like you know, his need for he always pretends to say, he always says that obviously, you know, Imani has her own mind, but the way that he talks doesn't show that she has her own mind. Shows, and again, I told you about the fact that there's a tussle between Imani. She's in the middle of things because that's how she is normally. Yeah, she goes whoever has got the most authority and power. And what's interesting is that Imani also requires or uses, I should say, Colby for her agenda. Her agenda is that she doesn't speak up often. She's not confrontational. She's not combative. So when it comes to her sister, she's always just yielded in terms of the fact that her sister takes over conversations. And when you see this in Tracy, when they're talking with Tracy, you know, when he says obviously he just wants to challenge them, she says obviously just not too much. I don't need to go overboard. But she's happy for him to challenge them. Why? Because what she wants is to be able to, that what he's doing is what she wishes she could do. okay? And she can't do it until then later on she goes to speak to her sister one-to-one. You know, and she's like, I wish everybody would just, you know, believe me when I say that this is how I feel, etc., etc., or this is what I mean, and just leave it at that, right? And again, she feels like the baby of the group. She feels like no one takes her seriously. Feels like no one thinks that she's capable of making her own decisions. That feeling of that no one trusts you to live your life is what's driving her closer to Colby even more. Yeah, this is my decision, my thing. I'm gonna do what I want to do. You're not gonna tell me what to do. That's what they're driving her to, because whatever she's experienced in the family home is now beginning to play out. What was interesting was that I'm gonna end it on this. What was interesting about Colby, and what my biggest fear is that Colby finds Jesus, and Imani stays where she is, and that then causes tension in the relationship. And maybe he'll have influence enough to bring her to the Jesus side. You know, maybe it won't end in disaster. But it was interesting because he said, obviously, you know, I had desires to be a minister. So you had desires to be a minister before you were saved. Before you had given your life to Christ. You know, it sounds glamorous being a minister. It sounds like a job. It sounds like something that you can achieve to do. But how do you do that when you haven't got a relationship with God? How do you strive for a position in the church, in the ministry, when you don't have a relationship with God? This ain't a job. This isn't the thing that you apply for at a bank or whatever. This is life. This is ministry. This is God. This is a calling. God has to call you. You know what I'm saying? So the fact that he wanted to be a minister, and then the fact that he searched the scriptures and he found himself a way, and then, you know, he had a conversation about how if God is real, how can he allow all this evil to happen? Well, let me put this straight. The Bible tells us how. The fall. The fall happened, and therefore evil crept into the world. Therefore death happened in the world. Therefore now, Satan, as we see, Satan obviously, with man's sinful nature, we see that evil and corruption enters in the world. We will, sweat by the brow and struggle to get food from the ground. That's what it says. Eve will bear children, but she will labor in pain. And so, as a result of the fall, things happened. Okay, there were a chain effect of events that took place. That we see that obviously why mankind is evil. We see this in Genesis 6, where mankind itself is very wicked and evil. So anyway, guys, let me leave it there. I think it was a very good episode, and I think that with Colby and Imani, I just feel like they just need more time. So I'm glad that they said no to the blessings. I pray they take more time, because I think Imani's voice will be found, and she may not want Colby after that. Anyway, guys, make sure you like, share, subscribe, click on the bell button for a notification of the uploads. But if you disagree or agree, comment in the comment section down below. We love you and appreciate you. Stay locked in.